Welcome back, everyone, to another edition of the Midwest Concussion Clinic Monthly Lunch and Learn. For those of you that are new, my name is Matt Campbell. I'm the owner of the virtual Midwest Concussion Clinic. I put together a series every third Wednesday of the month at noon Eastern Time here on our Facebook or TikTok Live and YouTube to put out information surrounding concussions, helping patients navigate the world of concussions, and helping those rehab providers treat concussions more effectively and up to date. So without further ado, the Midwest Concussion Clinic Monthly Lunch and Learn for November is navigating the holidays with a concussion. Christmas time, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, this time of the year is my favorite time of the year. It's where I love to spend time with my family. I love Christmas movies, everything to do with Christmas. I'm a huge fan of it. So one of the things that I talk about with all of my patients at this time of the year is the holiday season can be navigating with a concussion. So I put together a series every year. I put together handouts, things for patients as they continue to move through their concussion recovery in the holiday season. So I wanted to take a little bit of extra time this year to put together a nice webinar for people to view, cut up and put into little small videos and things to make it a little bit easier to digest for patients. But the idea is I want to make sure that everybody has the information that they need to ensure that navigating the holidays is easier this time of the year with a concussion. Without further ado, again, my name is Matt. I'm the owner of the Midwest Concussion Clinic. And with this webinar in particular, their replay is going to be up on our YouTube. If you signed up and registered via our website, you're going to get the link to go through the webinar again sent to you. And then I've got a guide to help you go through your recovery process and with all the tips and tricks here that we're going to talk about today. But for the presentation today, the whole goal is we're going to talk about the common holiday triggers that people will deal with during concussions. As they navigate through the Thanksgiving and Christmas holiday season, we're going to talk about some uncommon triggers that people don't think about and that are often overlooked when we start talking about ways to navigate through the holidays. We're going to talk about the majority of the day is going to talk about strategies that we can implement and that we can use to help ensure that we're making the holidays as enjoyable as possible as we're going through our concussion recovery. And then finally, we'll spend some time talking about how we reset after the holiday season to ensure that we don't lose the progress that we've made throughout the typical holiday season. So when we start talking about the holiday season, the common triggers that people will deal with, it's not necessarily that everybody will deal with these triggers, but it's something that people will think about more frequently when it comes to trying to come up with game plans to navigate through their concussion recovery. So the four main kind of common triggers that we see are social interaction, traveling, sleep difficulties and disruption, and then chaos. Okay, so let's go one at a time here. We'll start talking about the social interaction aspect. When we start talking about concussions and we start talking about getting back into your day-to-day routines, one of the hardest things that people have to deal with is that social interaction. Carrying on conversations, going around and meeting new people, going into different environments, and the hectic nature of having to communicate and being, in the moment during a conversation with somebody. Very rarely do we have planned conversations. It's not something that we know what question somebody's going to ask or we know what's going to happen during a communication session. We have to digest the information. We have to pay attention. We have to learn, and then we have to be able to answer questions on the fly. That's really challenging for a lot of people, not just those that are recovering from concussions. So we start talking about the drain on the holiday season. That social interaction can be hard. Generally speaking, it's not somebody that you see all the time. A lot of times with holidays and family get-togethers, it's people you might see a couple times a year. You might see random strangers. A lot of people are a lot friendlier and happier this time of the year. So you might have people that walk up to you and talk to you in the grocery store. It's also that time of the year where there's a lot of different organizations that are trying to get things put in place. So you might be approached for somebody looking for donations or looking to schedule events. We also look at there's a lot more church gatherings and a lot more presentations for the schools and a lot more plays and things that require a lot more social interaction than we typically will see any other time of the year. So that social interaction can be draining for everybody, not just those that are navigating through concussions. The second common trigger that people will look at and people generally tend to think about that's hard for the holiday season, again, not just those with concussions, is it's the traveling aspect of it. flights are delayed, flights are canceled with weather, different changes with the government are making travel a little bit harder. It's getting better now, but there are some things that will bring up difficult travel situations. Though, so not only do we have that same aspect of there's a lot of people, there's a lot of movement, we also run into the issue where we have to be able to think on the fly. We have to be able to make those changes. That has nothing to do with the fact that traveling in a car or in a plane can be very difficult on the vestibular system. Changes in headache pressure or intracranial pressures can be challenging when traveling. It's a major kind of component of our common concussion triggers during the holiday season. The next one is the sleep difficulty aspect of things. One of the biggest challenges with concussions, and it's going to be a theme of the presentation today, is that sleep difficulty that happens during concussions. Whether we're not sleeping in our same location, whether we're doing more around the holiday season, more visitors, more interaction, more things that are happening, generally people will tend to prioritize sleep a little bit less. It's a common thing in my household. I don't know about anybody else's household, but it's a common thing in my household to be kind of on the go a lot. We go to a bunch of different family locations. We do a bunch of different things. So it's hard to sleep at the end of the day because, the kids' bedtimes are off. My bedtime's off. My wife will go up and down, and we want to spend as much time together during the holiday season as we can with our young kids that it throws off our sleep routines. So sleep difficulties are a huge factor when it comes to concussion recovery, because if we don't sleep, we don't feel good. And even if we feel good, and even if we get sleep, we may not feel the best. So when we start looking at the common triggers of concussion symptom increases during the holiday season, sleep difficulties is one of the bigger ones, and it's one of the harder ones for us to kind of navigate through as we look at big picture kind of concussion recovery and concussion navigation through the holiday season. And then finally, the last common trigger that I bring up here is what I call chaos. And a lot of it has to do with the combination of the social interaction, the traveling, the sleep difficulties, the sleep disruption, the noise, the lights, everything that we tend to see during concussion recovery. And I kind of attribute it to chaos. There's a lot of unplanned. There's a lot of things that only happen one time a year. There's just a lot going on. So when we look at trying to navigate that concussion that concussion recovery during the holiday season, that chaos aspect of things is really, really difficult to deal with. There's a lot of overwhelming feelings that come into it, not only with all of the social interaction, the traditions, the people, the noise. There's also a lot of emotional triggers that happen during the holiday season. If things aren't good with family members, if we've lost a loved one or we don't have anybody close to us, there is a significant feeling of isolation that can happen during the holiday season that can cause increase in concussion symptoms during that, what I call chaos situation. Concussion triggers and concussion symptoms are going to be different for everybody. And those of you that are not dealing with concussion symptoms during a holiday season, these are all things that people will worry about during the holidays to kind of go through and look at planning their day, looking at planning the energy that they have available to give out, the things that they have available to them. So we start looking at the idea behind the social interaction, the traveling, the sleep difficulties, the chaos. All of those things are relatively common. But what about some of the more uncommon things that people won't think about when it comes to concussions? And when I talk about uncommon, I'm not necessarily talking about things that only a select few people will deal with. These are things that a lot of my patients will deal with during concussion recovery, but at the same time, it's things that are commonly done during the holiday season that we start to look at. Hey, what are we doing here? What are we seeing here? What do we need to adjust our day-to-day routines in to ensure that we're taking these things into consideration also? So when we look at one of the more uncommon things that people won't think about, it's something that I touched on with the sleep difficulties, but it's the lack of a routine. Most concussion patients will struggle with getting into a routine. Early on, we're sleeping all the time. We're so tired. We don't have the energy. We're really symptomatic. And then the longer we, are navigating through that concussion recovery, the more we start to do more, we tend to find ourselves getting back into a routine. During the holiday season, that routine of getting up and going to work and coming home and being around the family or going to my second job or doing, my day-to-day routine gets thrown off because we get extra time off from work. We have a more demand of things that we're supposed to do with family and church and work and all those other kind of common factors that will come into play. So we start looking at that routine gets thrown off during concussion recovery. And that lack of routine can make things really, really challenging to kind of maintain that progress that we've made. We struggle a lot early on with concussion recovery outside of the holidays, talking about, hey, we need to fill a routine. If I have somebody that's off of school or off of work, we need to be able to fill that routine to ensure that we're getting the kind of established routine that the brain needs to heal. So when we talk about uncommon triggers during the concussion or during the holiday season with a concussion, that lack of routine is one of the big ones that everybody will struggle with, not just those that are dealing with the concussions. That lack of routine will cause a lot of problems for everybody during the holiday season. The second uncommon trigger that we run into is food and drinks. We don't really think about much when it comes to the neural inflammation side of things because we can't see it. We can't see that aspect of things. Even internally, if I'm dealing with concussion recovery myself, very rarely is neural inflammation something that's brought to the top of my head. It's not something that I can sit here and say, oh man, I need to watch what I ate for dinner. Or I need to be careful with what I'm eating for breakfast today. It's generally something that gets cast aside or kind of tossed to the wayside. And I'll tell you with my patients, we will touch on neural inflammation. We'll do a bunch with supplements and different things, but unless somebody's not improving, we won't spend a whole lot of time talking about dietary changes, especially early in concussion recovery. Now, we spend a lot of time on it later on if things aren't going well or we're not seeing progress. We'll spend a lot more time on it than we normally do at the beginning. But it's something that during the holiday season, food and drinks that we're taking in can completely derail us symptom-wise if we're not careful. Again, the gut is the second brain, right? That gut-brain axis, the ability for the enzymes that the brain needs to go through its daily functions are created in the lining of the stomach. That's very important when it comes to the holiday traditions where we're getting food that we may not normally eat on a regular basis. I'll tell you, I would love to have the food that I get in Christmas and Thanksgiving time all the time, but realistic, that's not happening. So when we start looking at trying to navigate through those uncommon triggers, we need to be careful with what we're eating and what we're drinking during the holiday season with a concussion. One of the hardest things that I have to deal with when I'm trying to educate patients and trying to help through concussion recovery is that holiday traditions can be very, very triggering during the Christmas and Thanksgiving season, right? Going out and looking at Christmas lights, caroling, being around people, spending time, doing the things that we love to do around the holiday season can make somebody with a concussion feel completely miserable and lead to a crash in terms of symptom overload that's unplanned. And a lot of people won't understand what happened. I love going out and looking at Christmas lights with my family. We drive around all the time. We get our hot chocolate. We load the kids up in the car. We bring our animals with us and we go look at Christmas lights. Real small town, middle America stuff. But you want to know what? That's one of the favorite pastimes that I've had ever since that I was a kid. If you tell me one of those routines gets thrown off during the Christmas season just because I have a brain injury, I am going to be very, very angry. And I'm going to do everything that I can to power through it. Well, one of the biggest challenges during concussion recovery is powering through symptoms. So we have to be able to go through and educate that and have an understanding that I'm not telling you not to do those holiday traditions, but I'm going to tell you how to do them so we can limit the amount of increase in symptoms that we have overall. It's not just Christmas lights, Christmas movies, going out and being at the holiday dinners, going to church on those really important kind of religious holidays that we have that are generally more attended than other issues or other days of the year when it comes to church service or volunteer activities and donation activities. Like those are all things that we do a lot of during the holiday season that are absolutely incredible, but they come at a cost during concussion recovery, and we need to make sure that we understand that cost and where we're going to give before we take, okay? And then the last uncommon trigger is something that oftentimes everybody will touch on during their concussion recovery at some point or another, but most people don't understand how draining it really can be. Especially if you've never gone through concussion recovery, it's really hard to understand how draining that it can be to blend in, to fit in, to be around people when you don't feel like being around people, to doing things where it's like, you know what, I really don't want to be here today, but I can't not be here because it's the only time I see my cousins this year. I have to be at church because I'm on the church board or the deacon board, and I have to be able to be present during this situation. Or I have a holiday tradition my entire life of volunteering at a homeless shelter or at a soup kitchen on Thanksgiving, and I need to be there. That blending in can be very, very, very draining to somebody during concussion recovery because number one, we don't know how we feel well enough to communicate that we don't feel good. And it gets old telling everybody the same thing. How are you feeling? How are you doing? How's everything going? I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. Leave me alone. I'm fine. When we start looking at that demand on that blending in or putting on a brave face or wearing that mask that says, you know what, I'm doing okay and smiling through the pain, it is very, very draining. And it comes at a significant cost because not only do we have to do it once, we have Thanksgiving, we have Christmas Eve, we have Christmas, we have the weekend after Christmas, we have Black Friday shopping, we have New Year's Eve, we have New Year's Day, all of that back to back to back to back this time of the year. And if it's really draining for me to do it once, now I have to do it for the next month. And it's really hard on those navigating through concussion recovery as we kind of navigate through the holidays. So our uncommon symptoms are generally, or uncommon triggers are not uncommon that everybody goes through them, but it's more things that people will overlook or not think about when they're planning through their concussion recovery or their concussion navigation during the holiday season. So now that we've kind of learned about the common and uncommon triggers, what do we do about it? So when we start looking at the overall recovery for your concussion, the general aspect of things is we have to figure out how to find that fine line between doing too much and not enough. My coworkers needed to go outside. So when we start looking at that concussion recovery, it's really challenging to navigate where that fine line is. If I tell somebody to do something 10 times for the next 10 days, they're going to feel 10 different ways afterwards. So when we look at the holiday season, there's a more significant demand put in place on our patients. But at the same time, we need to be able to navigate through those without completely derailing your concussion recovery for some holiday traditions. It is a very tough conversation that we've had at times with patients in the past where it's, hey, look, I know you want to do these things and I know you want to be present and I know that this is the most important time for you right now, but look at the progress that you've made and look at what it did to us by spending all of this time during Thanksgiving doing it this way. Maybe we need to make sure that we have things put in place or game plans to kind of escape this when it comes to Christmas time. And I will tell you, I have been, through that situation where I was away from my family and traveling on Christmas and didn't have to be there. And in my 35 years of life, that 1 year of being away from my family on Christmas was awful. I absolutely hated it. Being in a hotel, waking up and not being around my family was terrible. So when I talk to my patients about, hey, the whole goal is we want you to be able to be around those family members during the holiday season, it's really kind of a challenge to get them to understand that I'm not trying to be mean when we talk about not being around during certain times or limiting how long that we're in those locations. I'm trying to make it so that you can enjoy the time that you're there while still being able to continue and progress through your concussion recovery. So with this, we're going to go through one at a time and kind of talk about the common things and then some strategies to implement to help make them a little bit easier. There's going to be a common theme on all of these where we talk about giving yourself grace. One of the hardest parts of concussion recovery is we want to do everything. We want to be normal so bad that we beat ourselves up. The meanest person that we all know is the one that sits between our ears. So when something doesn't go well or something's not working the way that it should, we beat ourselves up quite a bit. And it's one of the common themes across every single person that I work with is, hey, be nice. You got to give yourself some grace here. Concussion recovery is a 24/7 job. So anything else that you're doing outside of that is beneficial and is cake, right? We are getting more for what we're doing. So when we talk about all of these, the common theme is going to be to give yourself grace, know when it's okay to say that I'm not okay, and being nice to yourself when it comes to that time. So when it comes to social interaction, we talked about how detrimental social interaction can really be to all of us and how draining that it can be on our mental state, our energy levels. But now we add the fact that we're not functioning at 100% capacity. The first kind of step to navigating through our social interaction is communication has to be key. We have to make sure that we're talking to those people around us and confiding in somebody that we have in our family, a friend, somebody close to us, and communicating what our needs are often ahead of time. One of the harder things that I need to do is I have to sit down and talk to people about, hey, we need to go through and understand that during this time that it may not be the easiest thing in the world to be around. So we need to tell people ahead of time, hey, look, I'm dealing with things, I've been dealing with a concussion. I've got some headaches and dizziness. If I'm not talking to you, it's nothing personal. But being open and communicating even before you get to those holiday events can be really beneficial for the overall smoothing over of some of the hard feelings that generally tend to come when people aren't open and communicating honestly. Don't assume that people around you know what you're going through. Don't assume that somebody understands what you need and understands the needs that you have during your concussion recovery. Okay? My boss had to come in and talk to me. So, when we start talking about the social interaction of things, communicating ahead of times and making sure that people understand what you need and the kind of making accommodations before we even get to the event or before we even get around those people to ensure that we are open and honest with what we're going through during concussion recovery. Never assume that somebody knows how you feel or somebody knows what you're going through. Even I don't know what a patient's going through. I can tell you that I've been through mine and I know what I needed, but I have no idea what somebody else is feeling. So when we start having these conversations, I actually will work with all of my patients to put together a communication, like a text or an email or a handout that they can send to somebody that kind of outlines what they're feeling and how we can help communicate to that effect to other people. The second kind of key tip that we need to do is pace ourselves. It goes all the way back to giving yourself grace and being nice to yourself as you're going through your concussion recovery. You can't be Superman all the time. You can't go through and expect to be on the whole time and expect to be kind of navigating through your holiday season without bumps in the road. We can't expect that. Now, would that be great? Absolutely. I would love that for every single person I work with. The holiday season is fun and fantastic for everyone, but having that realistic understanding of it takes some time and we have to pace ourselves. Don't go back to back when it comes to family gatherings if we can control it. If I'm going from, my house to my mother-in-law's house to my father-in-law's house, like if I'm going back to back to back like that, it can be really challenging to go from one place to the next with travel in between. Pacing yourself, giving yourself an hour in between, giving yourself a half hour in between to sit in the car and get a chance to kind of calm yourself down and symptoms down can make it a lot easier on you when it comes to navigating through all of those required attendance situations that we have during the holiday season. The biggest one and kind of the key theme that I have for a lot of my patients is we can control only what we can control. I'll shorten it a lot of time to control the controllables. There's a lot that we can't control in life. We can't control how other people feel. We can't control what other people are doing, but we need to do our best to control what we can control. So we need to make sure that we're doing everything that we can in our situation individually to set ourselves up for success. Communicating, being around different people, wearing our noise canceling headphones or our earplugs as needed, our symptom, kind of reducing situations like wearing sunglasses when we're indoors, things to where we can control the stimulus that are around us while still staying present in the moment. If you're struggling with noise sensitivity, I can't recommend enough the loop headphones that are out there. Any musician's headphones or earplugs that are out there that lower the decibel levels while still keeping sound quality clear can be a real game changer during the holiday season. The next one is to have that confidant in each situation, right? Communication is key overall, but a lot of times patients will struggle with trying to put on that brave face of, hey, I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm doing all right. I'm doing what I need to do. I'm fine. So when we have that, we need to make sure that in each situation, we have somebody that we can be honest with. And generally with patients, I'll recommend two people. The first one is you have to be honest with yourself. You can't hide things from yourself. The more honest you are with yourself, the easier your holiday season recovery is going to go. So if you can be honest that, hey man, today is a 3 out of 10 day, I need to make, adjustments accordingly, it makes life a lot easier. Having somebody that we can confide in, that confidant during those different situations, can be really beneficial. Ideally, if I've got a husband and a wife, or a partnership situation where my patient's an adult and they're working with somebody closely that they're around all the time, it's, hey, we know that the more you're around your spouse with your concussion, they can see things too. So having that same person for each situation would be ideal. But I also have patients that are not married, high school aged or middle school age kids that don't have that same consistent person that's around all the time as they travel back and forth from mom and dad's house, or they travel to different friends' house or different church events. There are changes. But establishing somebody during the recovery process that you can confide in overall makes things a lot easier for us. And then finally, with everything, we're going to touch on the very last thing I talked about at the beginning, is we're going to give ourselves grace. If things don't go well during Thanksgiving, we make our adjustments and plan for the upcoming Christmas season. If we're sitting there and we've got some different things that we need to do for the beginning of New Year's Eve, and it's like, hey, look, I did okay during Christmas, but I didn't do well during Thanksgiving, we need to game plan, and we need to have a plan in that situation. And we need to understand that every day is going to be a little bit different during concussion recovery. The second common one that a lot of people will deal with, but not necessarily everybody, is that travel aspect of things. So travel can be challenging and hectic and chaotic and all those fun adjectives that we have for all things that don't go well. Traveling can be really difficult during the holiday season, just for the sheer number of people that are traveling, the different types of travel, and all those, weather delays and situations that can happen that can completely derail plans when we're healthy, let alone when we're struggling overall with with navigating through concussion recovery. So when it comes to traveling, plan ahead. Not that, hey, I need to make sure that I've got my tickets booked and I'm not trying to book last minute tickets. That's totally different. What I'm talking about planning ahead is if we can pre-register, we can pre-check in the night before, do that. The less interaction we have to have at the airport, the better. If you can see where gate you're coming out of before you get to the airport or before you land, seeing that gate and having a game plan of where that gate is can make your life a whole lot easier, aside from having to react to things after the fact. So planning ahead can be key when it comes to keeping you keeping symptoms low and overload low during the travel issues in your concussion recovery and navigating those holiday seasons. If you can, travel with somebody who understands. Right? Having a travel companion not only eases the load of rapid changes and having to make decisions, it also eases the load of, that difficult feeling of I'm disoriented, I'm dizzy, I have no idea where I'm going to go, and that complete shutdown that can happen if somebody gets overstimulated during concussion recovery. So having somebody that we're with, not only can they help you navigate through those, but they can also help you during those situations where it's like, hey, I understand, let me help you. Let me pull your bag, let me kind of put my arm around you, let's walk to where we're going, and remind you that you can do this over and over again. If you're traveling by yourself, having somebody on the other end of your phone that knows your travel schedule can be incredibly helpful. Having a friend, a family member, a spouse that's like, hey, what gate am I going to next? What place am I going to? When you're landing, shooting a text over that says, hey, look, you're going to gate 36D, you're boarding in an hour and a half, you got time to get some lunch. That can be significantly beneficial for somebody as they're going through concussion recovery that a lot of people will overlook. This next one comes to everybody, not just traveling across town or across country or across state. If I'm going from my house 2.5 minutes away from my mother-in-law's house, it's all the same. Traveling is difficult for people with concussions. So one of the things that I will sit down and recommend for every single person that's going through their holiday season with a concussion is to decompress when you get there. A lot of times you pull into the driveway and it's on, especially during the Christmas season when there are a lot of young kids around and everybody's excited and energetic and happy. They run out to the car and they meet you in the driveway and it is game on from the time you pull into the driveway. We went from a chaotic event of driving in to a chaotic event of being in the driveway, navigating, getting in and out of the car, doing things that are difficult, to now I have to be on in the room or in the house the entire time. Plan 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, even 30 seconds. When you get there, close your eyes, go through a set of your deep breathing exercises, big deep breaths in through your nose, out through your mouth, rhythmic tapping, parasympathetic relaxation techniques, things that can help you reduce symptoms, devotionals, meditations, something to where we're taking 2 or 3 minutes, ideally 5 minutes at the most, where we can sit here and we can relax before we go in. gather our thoughts, let symptoms come down from the travel, and then we can go beyond and go through and navigate that communication and everything that comes into play with being in that family get together or that church setting or in that play or that musical for school. The next one is, if you can, extend your actual travel time expectations, right? If I know that my family lives an hour and a half away, I'm not going to leave an hour and a half before I'm supposed to be there. If I can convince anybody during concussion recovery and traveling, especially in a car, is put stops, at least one midway through your travel, but ideally every hour, depending on how long the drive is, to help you get out of the car, decompress, go through those symptom reducing techniques, even if you're feeling good, and then getting back in the car and continuing to travel. It's really easy for somebody in my situation to tell you to do that. It can be really challenging when you have an entire family going through and it's like, hey, look, I need you to travel to grandma's house, and grandma lives 4 hours away. I've got my 5-year-old in the back seat yelling at me to get to grandma's house, and yet here we are taking a third break today. Like, it can be really difficult to do. But by pausing midway through, taking time out of the car and extending your travel time, it can make it so when you get there, symptoms are lower and you can enjoy your time a little bit longer. If you're traveling long distances and you have the ability to stay overnight, do it. You'd be surprised at how well you'll feel knowing that you don't have to go through all of the excess travel to get home after getting overstimulated and overwhelmed while you're there. And again, that common theme of giving yourself grace. Not everything is going to be perfect. If you're struggling, taking your time, relaxing, getting out, asking for help, all of those things that most people will overlook during concussion recovery, during holiday travel in general, people will overlook taking time, pausing, reflecting, and asking for help if needed. But giving yourself grace during that time of, hey, look, brain injury recovery is a 24/7 job. I'm doing fine, and yet I'm still traveling for the holidays, still trying to make time to get somewhere else and be around the people that I love. The next one is sleep difficulties. This is everybody across the board when it comes to the holidays. This has very little to do with concussion-specific problems. Sleep is very finicky for us. The brain loves routine, the brain loves patterns, and when we don't have those routines and patterns that we'll talk about a little bit, we struggle with sleep difficulties and sleep, kind of sleep regressions. It happens from the time we're babies all the way through the last days. When we start looking at the holiday season, it's a prime candidate for sleep difficulties because of all of that going on with the chaos, the hectic travel, sleeping in places that are not mine, traveling to a family member, staying in hotels, having that chaos of just being on the go, go, go all the time will lead to disruption in our sleep. So when we start looking at sleep routines and difficulties with navigating sleep, we have to understand that the more we can keep our sleep routine the same, the better. Waking up at the same time, going to bed at the same time, doing that routine that we do at the end of the night that wind down, brushing our teeth, taking a shower, reading our book, doing those things that are normal sleep routine will help the sleep-wake cycles inside the brain try to regulate themselves. Don't stay up late just because you can. If you're struggling and it's like, hey, look, we've got Christmas tomorrow, it's Christmas Eve, we did a lot today, going to bed early, trying to get that quality sleep and high quantity of sleep can be ideal when it comes to trying to navigate through sleep disruptions. This next one is control your environment, especially if you're sleeping away from home. Doing everything you can to make the environment dark and quiet, limiting the external stimuluses, the TV, the fan, the things that are causing noise that are different than normal. I used to travel for a living. One of the hardest things with being in hotels is I could hear every single person leaving the room. So having the TV on was a way that I did it, and I actually slept in headphones because it would help me kind of drown out the noise and I could control my environment. But the ideal sleep environment is a completely dark room, temperatures anywhere from 60 to 64 degrees, and making sure that we have the ability to kind of control the noise. Using our noise machines, using televisions, using podcasts, they're not ideal, but at the same time, if the alternative is not sleeping at all during your concussion recovery, you have to, that's fine, bud, okay? That you have to be able to navigate through that during your concussion recovery. The next one is sunlight exposure. Sunlight exposure is one of those things that helps us regulate our sleep-wake cycle. We're designed to wake up when the sun comes up and designed to go down when the sun goes down. So when we look at it, our melatonin production is naturally triggered in with sunlight exposure. The idea is you're supposed to wake up, get direct sunlight exposure within the first hour of you being awake. That triggers melatonin production 20 to 30 minutes, it triggers melatonin release 12 to 13 hours after the initial sunlight exposure. Okay, so let me say that again for you. The idea is when you wake up, you want to get direct sunlight exposure within the first hour of you waking up, and that will trigger our natural melatonin release 12 to 13 hours after that initial sunlight exposure. The problem with that, if in the Midwest, it's been gray for the last 3 days, right? I don't know if I necessarily got that direct sunlight exposure. That's where we have a couple different things. Even getting outside in the gray sunshine, it's still direct sunlight exposure. But they make different, what are called happy lamps, different lights that are artificial sunlight that we can use to help us with that natural melatonin production and help us kind of navigate through that sleep disruption that we can during those challenges with changes to our sleep routines. During concussion recovery, I will recommend that people take melatonin for that short amount of time as it will help us in the big picture, but especially as we're traveling, using melatonin to help us regulate those sleep-wake cycles to help make us tired, and understanding that there are different types of melatonin that are out there. We've got standard melatonin, something that's just labeled as melatonin is generally a fast-acting melatonin. It's designed to put you to sleep. We've got extended melatonin released or delayed released or melatonin XR or DR. Those are a delayed release melatonin that the idea is they don't help you fall asleep, but they will help you stay asleep. And then the final one are those dual action, dual complete, kind of half and half, where you get half of a fast acting and half of a long release melatonin that's designed to help, number one, put you to sleep, and then number two, keep you to sleep. Melatonin use during concussion recovery, especially during the holidays when everything else is chaotic, can help regulate those sleep-wake cycles for you and help you kind of get more benefit for the sleep that you are getting. And then finally, utilizing those relaxation techniques. Oftentimes, those are overlooked when we're struggling with sleep, that we'll have somebody who sits there and says, you know what, I couldn't sleep at all last night. Well, what did you do to sleep? Well, I just kind of sat there and thought about the fact that I couldn't sleep. Using our breathing techniques, our 4-7-8 breathing, our extended nasal breathing, belly breathing, and segmented relaxation, all of those that you can find on our social media channels, website, or if you shoot me a DM, I'll send you those relaxation techniques that we use to help people get to sleep. Can help you even if you're not dealing with a concussion as you're trying to sleep during the holiday season. They help trick the brain into that fight or flight, out of that fight or flight response into the parasympathetic repair and regenerate mode, and it helps us fall asleep. The next common thing that we'll deal with is that chaos that we kind of touched on at the beginning, where everything's hectic. There's so many things going on. There's so much that's happening all at the same time. Everything's back to back. We're go, 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 go all the time. The easiest way to kind of navigate through that and kind of make sure that we're doing everything we can to help keep symptoms low and help us ensure that our holiday season is enjoyable as possible is, again, controlling what we can control. We can't control the people around us. We can't control what other people do. We can only control how we handle things and what we do. So when we start talking about controlling what we can control in the chaos, it's, staying out of rooms that are too busy, being around, staying out of dark or out of those like bright lights, out of the rooms that are a little bit noisier than others. I don't know if you guys are anything like my family. When we're around, everybody's loud. The kids are loud. We're all laughing. We're having a great time. It's fantastic to be around, but even without a concussion, it can be a lot as we're all, carrying on conversations, hooting and hollering and having a good time. So when we start looking at that during concussion recovery, if I know that my family is like that, I'm going to find a different room that I can sit in and kind of control my overall conversations. Instead of having, 12 people in the room, I can get 2 or 3 in the room at a time, and it can help me navigate through that. If I can't be in a different room, using those loop earphones and earplugs that we talked about at the beginning, those different decibel lowering headphones, wearing our sunglasses, keeping one ear covered during concussion recovery, closing our eyes while we're carrying on conversation. Those are all ways that we can control the environment without having to leave the environment. The next one, and the big one that I will tell you is a godsend for a lot of people that we talk about it with, is the idea behind taking breaks. When you get to where you're going, set a timer on your phone for a half hour, set a timer for an hour, depending on how well you feel. I will try to convince every patient for a minimum of an hour. When that timer goes off, find somewhere where you can go that's quiet. Hey, I'm going to go to the bathroom real quick. I'm going to go sit in the car. I'm going to go into a different room in the bedroom, and I'm going to sit in a dark room where I can control things. I'm going to close my eyes. I'm going to tuck my chin down on my chest. I'm going to take 5 minutes where I can sit here and go through some of my relaxation techniques to help get my symptoms to calm down. Even if I'm feeling fine, taking that time away from people can help it make it easier for me to stay in those environments. It's something that's challenging for a lot of people, but if you take a break, you'll actually be able to stay around longer than it will be if you try to power through from the second that you get there. So if I can, at minimum, set a timer for every hour. Ideally, 30 to 45 minutes was great, but I need to be able to leave the environment and go find somewhere calm and comfortable. Communicating ahead of time, that's something that you can have plans set in place where it's, hey, look, I'm going to my grandma's house. I want to have a room where I can sit there and calm. If somebody's coming to our house, I'll block off a room or an area on the opposite side of the house from where we're all sitting so they can get as calm or a quiet environment as possible. The limiting stimulus, the communicating ahead of times, those are things that we've addressed and kind of touched on overall. But again, communication is key. Don't assume that people around you know what you're dealing with and know what you're going through. Don't assume that they remember that you're dealing with what they're going on, because think about how chaotic the holiday season is for you. It's chaotic for everyone, especially somebody who's hosting an environment or who's hosting a family dinner. There's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot that's involved. So when we start looking at the big picture of, managing and organizing the chaos, limiting and controlling what we can control, limiting that stimulus, and then being nice to yourself afterwards. If you have to leave, you have to leave. If you wake up and you're absolutely miserable and you make that tough decision of, hey, I'm not going today, that's okay. Concussion recovery is a 24/7 job. You are doing everything you can in your power. Your brain is doing exactly what it needs to do. Listen to it and be nice to the person that lives between your ears. Now, kind of navigating through some of the uncommon ones and how we can strategize for it. That lack of routine is really, really challenging. Again, it goes back to sleep difficulties. When we're not sleeping well, we struggle with that sleep-wake routine. So the first thing that we'll try to do to establish a normal routine is we need to at least control our sleep-wake cycles. So trying to go to bed at the same time, waking up at the same time every day, whether we're on vacation, whether we're traveling, whether we're home, sitting in front of the fireplace, eating chocolate-covered oranges. We want to sit there and we want to make sure that we're controlling that sleep-wake routine, because it's generally the one thing that we have more control over in our routine than anything else. Prioritizing your vitamins. Not only am I talking about vitamins and supplements and making sure that you're doing your normal vitamin and medication routine if you have one, making sure that you're staying up on those supplements to help curb neuroinflammation and trying to make your concussion recovery progress continue on. But when I talk about vitamins in this situation, it's things that we should be doing every single day. Prioritizing sleep, de-stressing, prioritizing hydration and nutrition, and controlling what we can control. Those are your daily vitamins. We want to make sure that no matter what we're doing, chaos, travel, symptom-wise, we're prioritizing sleep, hydration, and nutrition, and doing our best to de-stress. The big one here, and this is something that will help everybody as they navigate through the holiday season, prioritize exercise. For my concussion patients, it's not only your home exercise program, but prioritizing time to get out and move. Movement is medicine. Getting up and doing yoga, going for a walk outside, doing some light jogging, some body weight lifting, doing some things where we're getting the heart rate elevated in the parameters of your set concussion recovery guidelines can be really beneficial to us. That if we control our sleep-wake cycles, we prioritize our daily vitamins, and now we have a set aside time that we're getting our physical workout in, especially in the morning, it can really help us start our day off on the right foot. That we're doing everything we can to kind of power through and push through the initial start of the day, so we're off to a good start in the big picture. I like to talk to patients about using digital reminders. I don't know about you guys, but I have a phone that never goes anywhere without me. I'm getting better at it, but at the same time, that phone travels with me all the time. Using those digital voice assistants, Google, Alexa, Siri, to make sure that we're utilizing those plans to set reminders. If I'm cooking in the kitchen or I'm trying to do things to set up for a holiday, which is a whole other topic that I'll talk about here later this weekend, is the idea behind it. If I'm cooking, don't assume that I'll remember everything. Setting a timer that says, hey, rolls are in the oven, and then it goes off at the time that my normal egg timer would go off, or that I'd use my nose to smell to see how done they are. Setting that digital timer, setting that reminder to go off, and not leaving it vague. Setting it as, okay, move the sauce from the burner 15 seconds. Remove the turkey from the oven 2 hours. That way it tells you exactly what it is and exactly what you need to do. That way you're not guessing what your reminder or what your alarm was for in the first place. It's not just cooking. Setting alarms and reminders that go off in the morning that are telling you where you're supposed to be for the day. Setting your time that, hey, I'm going to work out at 10 a.m. every morning. Setting that reminder that says, hey, you're going to work out at 10 a.m. Your alarm goes off. You now are reminded that you're supposed to get your activities in. Use the digital reminders to our advantage. A lot of people are tied down to their electronics. Use them to your advantage during concussion recovery. And the big takeaway, I put it on this one in particular, because a lot of times if I have a routine and I miss one thing on my routine, I feel like my day's a failure. Progress over perfection on every single thing that I've talked about today. It doesn't have to be perfect. Doing what you can, progressing and going through and trying small things, progress will always be better than perfection. Okay. If you didn't do everything in your routine that you expected to do today, try again tomorrow. Give yourself grace, be nice to the person between your ears, and understand that concussion recovery is a 24/7 job. You're doing a lot at the same time that you're trying to recover. Give yourself grace. Progress is much better than perfection, but obviously if you can be perfect, be perfect. The next one are the food and drinks. Okay, the food and drinks are very symptom triggering when it comes to the neural inflammation side, especially if I have somebody with dietary restrictions to begin with. During the holiday season, we're usually eating food that's prepared differently than normal. It circles back to the beginning. I would love to be able to eat the same food I eat for Thanksgiving and Christmas all year round, but that's not realistic in my household, in my life. If I were, rich and famous, I would hire a private chef to cook for me all the time, but that's not happened yet. Still hopeful someday that that'll happen, but right now, realistically, that's not happening. So when we start looking at the food and drink triggers, a couple things to keep in mind. Number one, we want to avoid alcohol. Alcohol and brain injuries do not get along. Okay. Enzyme production to demetabolize alcohol, it causes problems during concussion recovery. Yeah, you'll actually have a higher BAC than you expect, and the effects will last longer than normal and start earlier than normal. Okay. So my go-to is avoid alcohol at all costs. If you're somebody who has to have an alcoholic beverage during concussion recovery, the lighter the alcohol color, the better. It's easier to metabolize. Putting drinks and breaks in between your drinks, especially if you're somebody in long-term concussion recovery or somebody dealing with persisting post-concussion symptoms or post-concussion syndrome. And it's like, hey, I'll have a drink every now and again. Just knowing and understanding the fact that, one, it's going to cause neural inflammation. Two, it's going to kind of make you feel like crap. And three, it's going to kind of derail you a little bit more than you expect. I would always just recommend avoid alcohol during this time. Avoiding inflammatory foods, limiting the amount of inflammatory foods. Again, it goes back to last time. Progress is different than perfection. If you can avoid inflammatory foods, avoid alcohol is great, but moderation is key. Making sure that we're limiting the effects. If I'm eating something that I know is an inflammatory food, like artificial sugars, eating a processed food or a deep fried food, adding in my anti-inflammatory foods, my berries, my mixed greens, my peanuts, my legumes, my beans, adding those into what we're doing is a way to counteract that. So, one of my key phrases with patients is nobody's going to be perfect with their diet during the holiday season. If you want cake, eat cake. We're doing everything that we can on the neural inflammation side with the supplements that we're on, that we're going through and taking, that we're doing things that we can. 9 times out of 10, we're being perfect. But if you want to have that pumpkin pie at Thanksgiving, have the pumpkin pie at Thanksgiving. Life's too short to avoid good food. So if we have things that are triggering for us, just know that eating that in moderation and understanding what it may do to us, and we have to weigh risk versus reward. At the end of the day, you have to understand that food is fuel. Even if you're nauseous, even if you're struggling with not feeling good, you have to eat. And that's where it can be really challenging, especially during the holiday season, being around all of this food when we're nauseous or when we have no appetite or appetite's changed compared to what our normal is. You have to understand that the brain needs fuel to function, and food is that fuel. So we need to make sure that we're getting food in, not just avoiding it in general. During the holiday traditions, we talked about Christmas lights a lot. Christmas lights are the big one that we're going to talk about here because it's something that I enjoy so much, and it's something that's really triggering for people that are around, is understanding that when you're going out and looking at Christmas lights, wearing sunglasses is not a bad thing. The farther back away we are from the Christmas lights and the flashing, the easier it is. And those sunglasses can help make the flashing reduce its intensity overall. The big one when we're decorating for our own home LED lights are harsher on the eyes than those soft white lights. Even nowadays, you can get LEDs that are in the soft white glow that glows more yellow compared to the vibrant bright lights that we see a lot of times with our outdoor lights. But having those softer lights, having those consistent color lights make things easier than flashing colors or varying color patterns when we're looking at Christmas lights. So especially when we're doing things around our own house and decorating our house for the holiday season, having those different lights, whether they are Christmas lights or they're other holiday lights with Hanukkah and Kwanzaa, we're looking at trying to keep our lights consistent, trying to reduce the amount of flickering that's happening, and then understanding that it's okay to be low key. Again, give yourself grace. You're navigating brain injury recovery. Okay. So when we're looking at brain injury recovery, we want to make sure that we're understanding that giving yourself grace. If you didn't decorate for Christmas or Thanksgiving this year and you normally do, that's okay. Again, brain injury recovery is a 24/7 job. It's something that you have to do all the time. So when we look at it, it's okay to only have one tree instead of 12 trees. And if you're like us, we got trees in every room in the house. So when we look at it, it's okay to limit the amount of decorating that you're doing. If you didn't decorate outside this year, that's okay. Do it next year when you're feeling back to your normal self again, or you're feeling better than you are right now. Going through it and giving yourself a grace and being nice to the person between your ears is key. And I don't know if you've picked up on it, but I've said it quite a bit because I want it to get through to the people that are watching and those that are kind of going back through and reviewing this, that it's okay to do things differently during the holiday season than you normally done because you're recovering from a concussion. This next one we talked about a lot early, so I want to just touch on a couple key points with blending in. The idea behind acting normal can get exhausting. So when you're sitting down and you're trying to go through it, understanding that the more you try to blend in, the more you try to fight the symptoms that you're having, the harder it is on you. Being honest with yourself, taking the breaks and saying, hey, look, today's not a good day. Normally I'm a 10, today I'm a 3. I just don't have it in me to be around and be on all the time. So when we start looking at it, making sure that you're being honest with yourself going into the event and how you're doing while you're there. The last one is have an escape plan. Don't be stuck in a situation. Don't ride with somebody to an event knowing that they're not going to leave and I don't have a way of getting home if symptoms are going bad. Talk to your spouse ahead of time. Talk to your concussion recovery confidant ahead of time and say, hey, look, I'm going to give you a signal. If you notice I'm doing certain things and we need to leave, volunteer to be the bad person if you're a concussion support person. I will always volunteer to be the person that if my family member needs to leave, that I am the one that needs to leave because I am okay with communicating on how I'm feeling. So as you're going through and navigating it, whether you're somebody who's dealing with a concussion or somebody who's helping other people deal with it, being that barrier between the family members that don't see it, don't understand, or don't believe it, because that happens quite a bit during the holiday season, being that barrier in between, hey, look, we need to leave unexpectedly, and this is the reason why. But understand, you don't have to explain things to anybody that you don't want to. Hey, we're going to go. It was nice seeing everybody. Great. Now we have our escape plan to get out. Sit down and prepare that ahead of time. Don't wait until you're in the middle of the trenches to kind of figure out an escape plan. Make sure that you know going in, hey, we have a signal, I have a code word that I can say, or I can come over and give you the look, and you understand that it's time for us to leave. So the last thing that I want to kind of give everybody with and kind of open up some communication for people that have it if they have questions or concerns after this presentation is, what do we do after the holiday season? Okay, we all understand the whole goal during the holidays is to not have to deal with concussion symptoms at all. We all want to feel 100%, no matter whether it's a concussion or not. We all want to feel 100%, be happy, be healthy, be humble, be around the people that we love and experience the holidays at a high level. So ideally, that's our goal. But realistically, we need to know what we can do after the holiday season to reset and refocus our concussion recovery, even if we didn't derail completely or we didn't have any setbacks, how we can get back into a routine and how we can do things to kind of reset after the holidays. These are the 4 key points to kind of resetting after the holidays. The first thing we need to do is de-stress. When we talk about de-stressing, that looks different for everybody. Whether my de-stressing looks like going through and going out and going for walks, getting back into an exercise routine, coloring, doing something creative, playing video games, going back through and doing devotionals, singing songs, doing something creative, playing music. The idea behind de-stressing is we have activities that look different for everyone. When I'm working with my patients, one of the first things we do is I want to know what your happy place is, and I want to know how we can get that activity back to normal or relatively low symptom demand or low energy demand to ensure that we can use it as a way of de-stressing. So we can't expect to go from being overwhelmed or overstimulated to everything's perfect overnight. We have to do things to de-stress. When the brain's not healthy, it will not naturally de-stress. We've all had that situation where we had a long day, we come down, we sit down, we're like, man, that was exhausting. And we take a big deep breath in, we sink back in our chair, and it's like, okay, I'm going to take a minute to just sit and relax. When the brain's not working optimally, we don't have that naturally occurring. So we will struggle with that feeling of like, now what do I do? And kind of how do I navigate through that? And what can I do to help overall kind of go through that process and do what we need to do to kind of ensure that we're de-stressing. And that's where those exercises, those relaxation techniques that anybody that DMs me afterwards, I'll gladly send to you, that are the basics that we recommend with people. If you've got a technique or a routine that works for you or an activity that you love, I would love to hear about it. Shoot me a DM, shoot me a text or an email, be like, hey, Matt, this is what I like to do. I put them together for patients because not everybody's the same. Just because I got a list of handout exercises that I talk about and relaxation techniques that I like to do for people doesn't mean that they work for everybody. I'm always trying to compile lists for my patients, and because if it works for you, it may work for somebody else. So that's the way kind of I work when it comes to treating patients. And if you've got something, I'd gladly share it, give you credit for it, and be like, hey, look, this is what they do. It works great. And we'll add it to the arsenal what we have. The second thing when you're trying to reestablish that routine or trying to reestablish that resetting after the holiday we have is establishing a routine again. Now that we're home, now that we've gone through all the chaos, the goal is we need to get back into our normal routines. Sleeping, waking, eating at the same times, doing our normal routines with exercise, work, school. Getting back into that routine can help you reset after your concussion and any increase in stimulus or any kind of increase in an overwhelming or overstimulating that may have happened. The third one for resetting is prioritizing our basics. Focusing on sleep, hydration, and nutrition. The three things that are really easy that are often overlooked when it comes to concussion recovery, especially the farther into concussion recovery that we get. Trying to prioritize taking our daily vitamins, taking the supplements that we have set in place for us for either one, our own research, our primary care or our concussion care team is set in place, or things that we've found that work best for us. We want to make sure that we're doing those on a routine basis, trying to prioritize 8 to 10 hours of sleep a night, and then trying to get 1 ounce per pound of body weight of water intake a day at minimum during our concussion recovery are all great goals to have as you're trying to reset after the holidays. And then finally, be kind to your mind. Understand why we had the overstimulation that we did, understanding that any setback or any change in routine is temporary. It's not long-term. It's not something that you're going to have to deal with forever, but going through and navigating that process and understanding that, hey, look, the holidays are over. Let's get back on track and let's get back to our normal routine, and be kind to the person that lives between your ears. You're doing the best that you can with what you've been given, and things will get better as you move forward. The last thing that I want to leave everybody with is the holidays are supposed to be fun and relaxing for everybody, rejuvenating. There's a lot of holiday tradition, family, friends, but they can also be very isolating and very lonely if you don't have those people around, or you don't have the opportunity to travel in, or you won't be around the people that you love. I just know that I'm a big fan of the holiday season. I love Christmas. It's my favorite time of the year, that I want the holidays to be as enjoyable for everybody as they are for me. So if you have questions about things that we talked about during today's presentation, things that you don't understand or you want a more elaborate message on, please DM me, shoot me a message here at MW Concussion on TikTok, on YouTube, shoot a comments in the comment section, send me a message on any of the other platforms that we're on, Twitter, X, Instagram, Facebook, shoot me a message. I'll answer every single thing that comes through because I want you to enjoy the holiday season just like I do. So for those of you that tuned in, thank you so much. Again, my name is Matt. I am the owner of the virtual Midwest Concussion Clinic. Every third Wednesday of the month at 12 Eastern, we're here on TikTok Live, our Facebook, our YouTube channel, talking about a different program. These are the 7 that we've done in the past. If you've got a topic that you want to know more about, shoot it to me. I'll put together a presentation. We'll talk about it, because the way I look is, if you've got a question about it or you want to learn more, there's somebody else out there in the world that's got the same problem, the same question, that they want to learn more. If you do want to learn more, you can kind of follow along all of our social media platforms. We're on everything: X, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, TikTok Live. Here, on our live webinars, I'm very responsive. The perk of a small business is I am employee one of one. The jokes about my bosses and my coworkers, my son, my daughter, my wife, they're my coworkers. They're my best friends. My dogs and cats are my other coworkers. So, the social media aspect, if you shoot a message or a comment to the social media, it's coming right to me. I will get it. I will answer questions that you have. And my whole goal is, I want my social media presence to be reassuring to not only my patients, but anywhere out there navigating through their concussion recovery, that they're not alone. If you want to learn more about working with me and me helping you through your concussion recovery, you can schedule your initial evaluation or a free consult at mwconcussion.com through our website. Really easy to sign up. There are blocks in there. Pick what's most convenient for you. The best part about my situation is, with that virtual aspect, I can meet you where you need to be met, and we can go through and we can walk through this journey together. For everybody that tuned in at any point, thank you so much for supporting me. The whole goal is helping people, and the more you guys are around, the more I can help people. I really appreciate everybody that's given me the opportunity and trusted me with their concussion recovery. And I just want everybody out there dealing with this and navigating through their own brain injury recovery, that you're not alone. There are people out there that see you, that understand what's going on, and I will do everything in my power to help you find the right situation for you and to navigate your concussion recovery through the holidays with these tips and tricks. Thank you.